And then what we did was, number 1 would be the most important, and number 10 would be the least important. And we would look at the top 3, and if there's any commonality there, that's a very good spot to start with. Hello everyone, this is Ronan Blue, just taking my daily walk here today. And today's topic would be on mistakes millennials make for their finances. So this topic might offend some millennials, some of the stereotypes out there of their lifestyles. But I believe millennials are in a transition from the 2 previous generations. Well, obviously it's a transition because it's a brand new generation of young people. But the previous 2 generations had it pretty good. The economy was good. And in most cases, like the previous 2 generations, when they entered into a job field, the jobs were pretty much secure for the rest of their lives. That's pretty much what the traditional was anyways. People would just, whether or not it be a white collar job or a blue collar job, they were pretty secure for the rest of their lives. And it usually only required that one parent would work, usually the male figure, and the female would be the housewife. So that was the mentality of the previous 2 generations, the majority of thinking anyways. But for the millennials, they have it a little bit more tougher because, well, the economy, everything has been getting a lot more expensive, and it actually requires that both parties in the household, the male and the female, are required to now work to live the lifestyles that the previous 2 generations did. But it could be for a number of different reasons. It could be because of inflation, or it's just everything is actually getting more expensive than it used to be. And to maintain that same American dream, it requires both parties in the household to work, the dual income. And you find that millennials are getting married a lot later in life, and they're buying their homes a lot later in life. And the previous generations are kind of complaining about them as well, just because some of the traditional mindsets that the previous generations had, the millennials are not adopting. And for good reason, I would say, because it's getting a lot more expensive to buy a home, and also there's stagnant wages out there as well, and obviously the economy isn't doing so well, especially with this pandemic. But I think the millennials have it tough, and also tuition is also very expensive as well. But millennials in most cases have this expectation when they do graduate. They have this mentality of the dream job, because I guess through the socialist educational system they were always sort of given things, right? It was kind of the mentality of everyone gets an A. There is no first place. Everyone wins kind of mentality. And I guess the previous 2 generations was that there was always a number 1, and there was a number 2 as well. So we would cherish those who reached the status of number 1. And we all strive to work very hard to achieve that status. But I think the millennials kind of grew up in a society where everybody wins, right? Everyone is equal. So the mentality or the mindset is very much different, I would say. One point that's similar among the previous two generations and the millennials is that every one of those generations are financially illiterate. And today I'd like to talk about some of those points today, specifically for the millennials, and how they're making some similar money mistakes that the previous two generations were making, but some that have evolved to adapt to the current economic state as well. But I'm just going to list out a whole bunch of different points and tell me what you think. So the first point to bring up for millennials making mistakes for their finances would be that a lot of millennials are not consistent. So I would say in the majority of cases, millennials are probably financially more literate than the previous two generations, just because of the information that's out there available over the internet, for example, that you can search on to find methods to save money. But the problem is there's so many different methods that the millennials tend to hop from one thing to the next, and they're not consistent in choosing one particular method, and they fail to really be disciplined to follow it and end up failing in most cases. So it could be somewhat of a trap as well, hopping from one method to the next. We actually stuck to the methods out there, and it turned out pretty good for us. And another point to maybe mention is that millennials tend not to set up automatic payments to pay themselves first, to put it into a savings account whenever they receive their paychecks on a bi-weekly or monthly basis. They just don't switch it on, and that could be a big mistake that the millennials are not doing, because you can set up automatic payments to a savings account, or you can set up automatic payments to a brokerage account. You can set up automatic payments for basically anything, really. And even at work, when you want to set up your 401k, company matching 401ks, you can also create automatic payments that you can talk over with your the HR department there, to deduct a certain percentage out of your paycheck to go directly into your retirement fund. So because the pension plan is essentially disappearing as the years progress, and we're actually responsible now to take care of our own finances individually. So the best option at this point in time would be the company matching 401ks, and just paying yourself first and setting up automatic payments. But another point to mention would be mistakes that millennials make for taxes. I mean, every generation makes their mistakes, but sometimes the millennials don't know what to claim, like for their student loans, or sometimes they believe they do those side hustles that they get from the gig economy, from those Uber apps or babysitting apps or shoveling walks or mowing lawns. You can get those side hustles. They believe that money grows on trees, which it kind of looks like to be the case when you look at those apps. But they believe that they can get away with not paying taxes for doing those side hustles. And sometimes the punishment is that the IRS sends them a letter saying otherwise. So you want to be very careful in not paying your taxes, because you will need to pay your taxes. But another mistake that millennials make would be in misunderstanding money basics. So, I mean, it's not entirely their fault because our schooling system hardly ever teaches anything about personal finance. So that's understandable. But then on the other hand, as mentioned earlier, there's a number of different resources over the internet where you can find on how to, you know, protect yourself basically within this economic new world. But there's definitely a number of different resources you can find over the internet to protect yourself in these economic times. But the simple misunderstandings about credit and debt and how interest works and how inflation works, some of those basic money concepts are not understood. And that's why, you know, it's a scary thought when some of those millennials get credit cards, because they don't know, you know, I mean, they know the power that they have in purchasing, because that credit card brings them that instant gratification to purchase anything to satisfy that moment. But the implications of having to use that credit card over and over again and getting into that debt and possibly not being able to pay that amount could have long-term implications for them. So it actually requires a lot of maturity to have a credit card, and knowing those basic money concepts would go a long way. So another mistake that millennials forget to do would be to check their credit report. And you should be doing that at least once a year. Some people may look at it multiple times a year, but just keep in mind that it does cost some money to do so. But once a year would be pretty much free. And the reason why you want to do that is because so you can identify some of the errors, or you can look at identity theft as well. And you can also check whether or not there's any credit card fraud. So you want to be proactive in checking your credit score at least once a year. And another mistake that millennials do is that they don't set any goals. And it's always important to set your financial goals. For us, we had our 5-year goals, but that's for the longer term. But you can set your short-term goals as well on a daily or weekly basis or a monthly basis. So it's really important to use the B word in budgeting. But if you can set goals like achieving your first $10,000, or you know, having a savings rate of 20% per month, or maybe for those who want to achieve financial independence, you want to keep a savings rate of 50% or 60%. But you always want to have a goal in mind. And you might have a partner, and you want to sit down together with your partner and see what the interest would be for each of you and come to a compromise. Like, for example, going and buying a home or something like that. So you want to coordinate together with your dual income to achieve a particular goal, a down payment for a home. So goals are extremely important, and I think a lot of people tend not to have a goal, and they just sort of talk about it without having a specific number to achieve. And another mistake that millennials are not doing is investing for the longer term. So actually, before this pandemic, millennials, a high percentage of them, did not invest their money. And the reason being is because of the crash that they experienced, or their parents experienced, the Lehman shock of 2008, where there were defaults for the mortgage-backed securities. And it sent a lot of people into this spiral state of loss and debt and bankruptcies. So that's why I think they witnessed their parents suffering, and they decided themselves in not ever investing into the stock market. But the thing about that is when you look at yield, passive income, the best place where you can get passive income would be the stock market. So if you go ahead and invest into the stock market, and you can take advantage of yields from ETFs and mutual funds and index funds, or individually selecting dividends to get that the yield. So your money will be working for you. But I think the millennials, the mindset has changed recently because of the pandemic. And there has been a record number of people creating brokerage accounts. So there's a long lineup right now for account approvals to start investing. But the thing is, they should have been investing previous to that. And the reason being is because the younger you start in investing, the more you can take advantage of compound interest and see that your net worth grows exponentially on a monthly basis. So together with paying yourself first and getting that amount of money from your job and investing and getting that interest every month, it grows exponentially. And I talk about it in my other vlogs as well. The actual time frame it would take you to achieve particular amounts. If you have the proper mindset, and if you follow certain philosophies such as minimalism and frugality, you will have that surplus at the end of the month to be able to invest that for your longer term benefit. But you can definitely start with company matching 401k to start off with, and HR will do all of that for you anyways. You have to see whether what kind of options that are available for you. You can just pick one of their options. Some options are self-directed, but you don't have to really worry about anything because it's all automated, and they deduct a certain percentage from your paycheck on a monthly basis. So, and you should also do that for, if you get a potential raise, as an example, you should never use the excess to buy more materialism. You should always think about keeping and maintaining the same lifestyle that you had previously before that raise, and put that surplus into investing. And you can do that for your tax return as well, just taking that tax return and investing it. And that's essentially what we did. We never had that bigger the better mentality. We always took that surplus and invested it, and it turned out really well for us, being in financial independence. And another point to mention is that a lot of the millennials are actually living in the moment. And I guess the previous two generations are guilty of that as well. So they don't find that savings should be part of the equation. And they believe happiness and the lifestyle that they live would be much more pleasing. And living in a moment has put a lot of people in debt, especially when everyone has that mentality of achieving the American dream. And there's different kinds of lifestyles. I talk about the American dreams in my other vlogs, but it's actually kind of a path for you to go broke as well. So, because debt is so normalized in our society that everyone could tap into that debt to get that instant gratification. So you need debt for everything, right? Purchasing a home, a car, all of your materialisms. But the last point to mention is that millennials tend to avoid the money talk. And this point is pretty important because, especially nowadays, because unfortunately, having a partner in most cases is kind of like having a business contract. I know it sounds a little bit cold, but because a relationship should be based on love, But nowadays, it's kind of like a business contract, and you have to make sure to sit down with your partner to figure things out, especially for your longer term financial future, because a high percentage of people actually separate because of finances, and it wasn't properly discussed among the couple. So it's always good to figure out what each person's general idea would be when it comes to saving, investing, future goals, and maybe even talking about how their family members treated money over the years as well. Because it's hard to get into a relationship with a partner who spends a lot of money, whereas the other partner is frugal. So there's definitely going to be a misbalance. And when it comes to those larger purchases like a home or a vehicle or anything above $100, you know, it's going to be, you're going to be headbutting each other. So it goes back to goal setting again. You both have to have one particular goal in mind to work towards. And what we did was we actually made a list out of 10. Each of us made a list out of 10 of all of our wants. And then what we did was, you know, number 1 would be the most important, and number 10 would be the least important. And we would look at the top 3, and if there's any commonality there, that's a very good spot to start with, and to set your goals together. Well, I think I have my vlog here today. Tell me what you think of all of the mistakes millennials are making with their money in the comment section below. If you like this vlog, please don't forget to give me a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell for more of my coming content here. Thanks for watching my vlog. Be free, gain wealth, and travel far.